Chapter 1. An Unexpected Morning. Emma woke up with the sensation that someone was pressing down on her face. No, not exactly pressing. Something warm, soft, and rhythmically rising and falling beneath her cheek. She cracked her eyes open, the dim light filtering through the hotel curtains casting a glow on a firm chest, speckled with a few stray hairs. She jolted upright like a spring, but her head spun from the pounding headache, left by a night of overindulgent red wine. What the hell is happening? Emma muttered, clutching her head, her eyes darting around. The luxurious room boasted a pristine white king-size bed, a faint minty scent lingering in the air, and a strange man lying beside her. The blanket was pulled up to his chin as he breathed steadily, oblivious to the silent scream that had just erupted in her mind inches from his face. Emma looked down at herself, an oversized men's shirt clearly not hers, and her underwear still intact. Okay, at least she wasn't completely naked, but where did this shirt come from? And why had she been curled up on his chest, like some lazy cat? She rummaged through her memory. Lily's bachelorette party, her best friend at a rooftop bar, red wine, 1 glass, 2 glasses, then a deep warm voice in her ear. Are you okay? Let me take you back. After that, blackout. Oh no, no, Emma whispered, hand over her mouth. She glanced at her unwilling pillow. He had dark brown, slightly messy hair, thick brows, and sharp facial features that she had to admit were damn handsome, even in sleep. But so what if he was good-looking? She didn't know who he was. She had to get out now. Emma slid off the bed quietly, careful not to jostle the mattress. She spotted last night's cocktail dress draped over a chair, slightly wrinkled but wearable. She hurriedly slipped it on, trembling hands fumbling with the zipper, her eyes never leaving the stranger. As she bent to grab her purse, a small star-shaped silver earring, a birthday gift from her mom back in college, slipped from her ear, rolled under the bed, and made a faint ting. Emma froze, glancing at him. He stirred slightly, mumbling something like, "Don't go," but his eyes stayed shut. Her heart pounded. No, don't wake up now, she silently begged, then decided to abandon the earring. Her life, no, her dignity, was worth more. She bolted for the door with the speed of a sprinter, stealing one last look back. He was still asleep, blanket tucked around him, only his tousled hair and a hand peeking out. A nice hand, long and slender, wearing a simple silver ring. Who knows, maybe he's a millionaire, Emma mused, then laughed at herself. Millionaire or not, I swear I'll forget this by the end of today. The door clicked shut behind her. Emma stood in the hotel hallway panting, hair a mess, dress crumpled. A cleaning lady pushed her cart past, eyeing her with a knowing look. Fun party last night, huh kiddo? She teased. Emma blushed, mumbled yeah, and dashed into the elevator. Meanwhile, back in the hotel room, Alex opened his eyes. He frowned, his mind still foggy as if stuffed with cotton. He wasn't the type to get drunk easily. A lawyer like him always stayed sharp in any situation. Yet last night, after randomly meeting a tipsy girl at the bar, everything had somehow spiraled out of control. Alex sat up, pulling the blanket off, and realized he was down to his underwear. "Damn it," he muttered, rubbing his temples. He scanned the room, empty save for a lingering trace of perfume, a sweet woody scent he couldn't shake. On the pillow beside him, he noticed a long light brown strand of hair caught there. He stood, slipping back into his shirt, now missing a button, and paced the room for clues. As he grabbed his shoes from under the bed, he heard a faint ting, bent down, and saw a silver star-shaped earring roll out from the shadows. Alex picked it up, studying it. Did she leave this behind? He wondered. Fragments of the night came back. A long-haired girl, bright eyes, giggling as he tried to joke to keep her alert. He'd brought her here because she couldn't remember her address. And then, what had happened? He wasn't sure, but the warmth of her resting against his chest lingered, vivid and strange. Alex slipped the earring into his pocket, unsure why he didn't toss it. He didn't know who she was, but part of him wanted to find out. Maybe she's wondering about me too, he thought, then shook his head with a faint smile. Probably not. She bolted like she was escaping. He stepped onto the balcony, gazing at the waking city as a cool morning breeze brushed past. Alex rubbed his forehead, trying to recall more, but all he had was her blurry image and the last thing he'd heard before drifting off. "You're so warm." Emma sat in a taxi home, vowing to bury this at the bottom of the ocean. She didn't know his name, couldn't clearly recall his face, and would never see him again. A minor accident. Emma, forget it, she reassured herself. But deep down, she couldn't erase the strange warmth of that chest. Meanwhile, Alex stood in the empty room, holding the tiny earring. He wasn't one to believe in fate, but for the first time, he wondered, who is she? And a vague hunch told him their story wasn't over. Chapter 2. Unexpected Consequences. 3 months had passed since that fateful night. Emma swore she'd bury in the depths of her memory. She'd done well, or so she told herself. Life returned to normal, long days at the interior design studio, evenings with chamomile tea and Netflix, and not a single thought about the warm-chested guy from the hotel, until this morning. Emma stood in the bathroom, hands trembling as she held a pregnancy test, staring at 2 glaring red lines. "No way," she muttered, tossing it in the trash, only to fish it out again, glaring at it as if sheer willpower could turn it into one line. But no, the 2 lines stayed stark and merciless. She sank to the floor, hands on her head. "I'm pregnant. Seriously. With who?" She scored her memory, digging for any scrap from that night. Lily's bachelorette party, red wine. Too much red wine. A deep, warm voice in her ear. "Are you okay? Let me take you back." A hint of mint in the air, and then waking up on a stranger's chest, fleeing in panic. That was all she had. No name, no face, just a faded memory like a silent film with missing scenes. Oh God, am I the lead in some terrible movie? Emma muttered, hand brushing her stomach. Only now she noticed it was slightly rounded, no longer flat. Standing before the mirror, she lifted her shirt, staring at the work in progress. "Hi, little one," she said, half joking, half tearful. "Mom doesn't know who your dad is, but I'm definitely not telling you this story when you're older." Emma decided to keep it secret, not a word to Lily, not to her mom who'd faint if she knew her single 28-year-old daughter was about to be a single mom. She told herself she could handle it, as she always had with everything, but deep down, a quiet panic grew. Who's the father? How do I find him? That afternoon, Emma had a big meeting at the interior design firm where she freelanced. A VIP client needed urgent advice for a new penthouse, and her boss practically begged her to take it. "Emma, you're the best here. Don't let me down," he texted. Emma sighed, slipping into a loose dress to hide her budding belly, spritzing her favorite woody sweet perfume, and heading to the office. She entered the meeting room, files in hand, mind still adrift with the pregnancy test. Her boss, Henry, introduced them. "This is Alex Mitchell, a lawyer from Mitchell and Associates. He needs his penthouse redesigned in 2 months." Emma looked up, ready with a professional smile, but froze. The man before her was about 32 tall, in a perfectly tailored gray suit, with dark brown, slightly messy hair, thick brows, and piercing blue eyes. He was reserved, a touch cold, but something warm hid beneath his stiff exterior. A shiver ran down Emma's spine. She wasn't sure why, but he felt familiar. Alex looked at her too, a flicker of surprise crossing his face, before settling back to neutral. He stood, shaking her hand. "Nice to meet you," he said, his low, steady voice jolting her. That voice, wasn't it the one from her drunken haze? And the scent, not mint, but a woody citrus blend close to her memory. Emma tried to stay calm, sitting across from him as Henry launched into the project details, but her mind wandered. She stole glances at Alex, his hand on the table wearing a simple silver ring. She recalled the hand sticking out from the hotel blanket. Coincidence? No, it couldn't be. The world wasn't that small. Alex, though, knew her instantly. That sweet woody perfume. It was the scent he couldn't forget from 3 months ago. The long-haired girl with bright eyes who'd left him in that hotel room with a tiny earring. He still kept it in his desk drawer, unable to toss it. Now, seeing her here, he wasn't sure what to say. Did she remember him, or did she not know what happened either? The meeting dragged on for 20 minutes before diving into specifics. Alex asked, "Can you start this week? I need the space done soon." Emma nodded, forcing professionalism. "Sure, what style do you want?" "Minimalist but warm," Alex replied, locking eyes with her. "You seem very suited to that taste." Emma gave an awkward smile, unsure what he meant. She reached for the water glass to hide her unease, but then Alex asked, "Are you okay? You look a bit rounder since we last met." The glass slipped from her hand, water splashing across the table. She shot up, face tomato red. I'm sorry. I'm fine, just clumsy." She grabbed napkins, wiping frantically while Henry stared in shock. Alex raised an eyebrow, a faint smile tugging at his lips, the first hint of emotion he'd shown. "It's fine," he said calmly. "I've spilled coffee on important files before. No need to stress." But Emma was stressed. Rounder since we last met. What did he just say? He remembered her. He knew her. Or was it a throwaway line? She searched his blue eyes for clues, but Alex stayed silent, helping her wipe the table with slow, deliberate movements. The meeting ended in Emma's flustered haze. She left the room, hand unconsciously on her stomach, mind a mess. It can't be him. I'm imagining it, she told herself. But Alex lingered in the room, hand in his pocket, fingers brushing the tiny earring he'd carried since that day. He wasn't sure if she was pregnant, just a hunch from her rounded figure. But if she was, then what? For the first time, he felt his heart beat faster than usual. Chapter 3. Confrontation. Emma left the meeting room feeling like a ghost of herself. The spilled water. Alex's comment, "You look a bit rounder since we last met," and his piercing blue eyes swirled in her mind like a storm. She rushed to the bathroom, stood before the mirror, hands on her stomach, whispering, "Calm down, Emma. He doesn't know anything. It was just a random remark." But deep down, she wasn't sure. That deep, warm voice, the woody citrus scent, the hand with the silver ring, all tugged at the hazy memory of that night 3 months ago. She took a deep breath, smoothed her hair, and resolved to stay as far from Alex as possible. "I'm the designer, he's the client. That's it," she told herself, then returned to the meeting room to grab her forgotten files. But as she opened the door, she nearly yelped. Alex was still there, standing by the window, hands in his pockets, gazing at the city with a pensive look. "Oh, sorry. I thought you'd left," Emma stammered, gripping her purse strap like she wanted to strangle it. Alex turned, his eyes sweeping over her. "I was waiting for you," he said, his voice low and even, devoid of emotion. "We need to talk." Emma swallowed hard, feeling like she'd been summoned to an interrogation. "Talk about the project. I'll send the sketches in a few days." "Not the project," Alex interrupted, stepping closer. He pulled a small silver star-shaped earring from his pocket and held it up. "You left this in my room. I thought you'd want it back." Emma stared at the earring, her heart pounding. It was the one she dropped in her panic, sneaking out of the hotel in the pre-dawn dark. "How do you know it's mine?" she asked, her voice shaky, struggling to stay calm. "I recognize your perfume in the meeting," Alex replied, his gaze sharp like a lawyer dissecting evidence, sweet with a hint of wood. "And your figure, rounder, like when you spilled the water from nerves. I'm guessing you're pregnant, and it might tie back to that night." Emma's face burned. He pieced it together. From the perfume, the earring, to the belly she couldn't hide forever. "What are you talking about? I don't understand," she protested, but her voice cracked with panic. Alex stepped closer, his tone dropping but heavy with weight. "That night after your friend's bachelorette party, you were blackout drunk. I took you to the hotel because you couldn't remember your address. Something might have happened. When I woke up, you were gone. I didn't see your face clearly because you left while it was still dark." Emma wanted to sink into the floor. He remembered, and he hadn't forgotten. But because she'd fled in the shadows, they'd never faced each other until today. "I don't remember much," she admitted, her voice fading. "I drank too much. I didn't mean to." Alex stayed silent, studying her. From the meeting, he'd suspected, the way she clumsily spilled the water, her rounder shape, that familiar perfume. As a lawyer, he was used to analyzing situations, and the pieces were falling into place. He briefly wondered if she'd set a trap, but seeing her red-rimmed eyes and raw panic, he knew she wasn't faking. "You're pregnant, aren't you?" he asked bluntly. Emma bit her lip, finally nodding, eyes brimming with tears. "Yes, I found out this morning, but I didn't know who you were until now." Alex rubbed his forehead, processing this. As a lawyer, he understood his legal obligations. If the child was his, he couldn't walk away, not just for ethics, but for the law. "If the baby's mine," he said, his voice steady, "I'll take responsibility." Emma looked up, stunned. "Responsibility? What do you mean?" "I'll cover the costs, hospital bills, baby supplies, whatever you need," Alex replied, sitting across from her. "And I'll be there through the pregnancy if a DNA test confirms it. This isn't a proposal, just what I have to do." Emma blinked, unable to believe her ears. He was serious, but the idea of relying on a stranger terrified her. "No thanks," she said, her voice firmer than she expected. "I don't need your help. I'll raise the kid alone. You don't have to do anything." Alex raised an eyebrow, mildly surprised. "You sure?" he asked, still calm. "I'm a lawyer. I know my rights and duties. If the baby's mine, I'm legally accountable whether you want it or not." Emma shook her head, standing, her hand instinctively on her stomach. "I don't want you doing anything out of duty. I don't need money or pity. Let's pretend that night never happened." She turned to leave, but Alex's voice stopped her. "I'm not doing it out of pity," he said, standing too. "I'm doing it because it's right. You can refuse, but I won't let this go." A few days later, Emma's doorbell rang. She opened it, startled to see Alex standing there with a large bag. "What are you doing here?" she asked, her tone wary. "Nutrition for pregnant women," Alex replied, setting the bag on her kitchen table without waiting for an invite. "Milk, vitamins, some stuff I read about. You don't have to take it, but I brought it anyway." Emma peeked inside, pulling out a box of powdered milk meant for cows. She burst out laughing, unable to hold it in. "Are you trying to raise a cow or me?" Alex froze, glanced at the box, then flushed. The first time she'd seen him flustered. "Damn it, I grabbed the wrong label," he muttered, scratching his head. "I'm not good at this stuff." Emma laughed harder, the tension easing a bit. "I said I don't need it," she said, but her voice softened. "Why are you so stubborn?" Alex looked at her, a hint of warmth in his eyes. "Because I'm a lawyer. I don't back down when I know I'm right. And because—" he hesitated, then continued, "I don't want you facing this alone." Emma fell silent, unsure how to respond. "Don't make me like you," she said, half joking, half serious. "I don't need more complications. I'm not the type people like." Alex replied, a touch of self-mockery in his tone. "You don't have to worry." Alex left, leaving his number in the bag she didn't accept. Emma sank onto the couch, hand on her stomach, feeling oddly about this man. He was stubborn, awkward, but not irritating. "I don't need you, Alex," she whispered. Yet her eyes drifted to the bag. Alex sat in his car, hands on the wheel. He didn't know why he was so determined, but he couldn't turn his back on her or the child that might be his. Chapter 4. Reluctant Connections. Emma had tried her hardest to keep her promise to herself. No relying on Alex, no letting him slip into her life. But since the day he left that bag with the hilarious cow's milk, Alex had become a regular uninvited fixture. He called to check if she needed anything, texted reminders to take her vitamins, and even booked her first prenatal appointment without asking. "I'm a lawyer. I know how to handle things," he'd said over the phone, his calm tone leaving Emma both annoyed and unable to argue. On the morning of the appointment, Alex showed up at her door in a sleek black SUV precisely at 8:00 a.m., like a machine set to a timer. Emma stepped out in a loose dress, hand on her belly, eyeing him suspiciously. "You don't need to play chauffeur," she said, her voice edged with irritation. "I can take a cab." "My car is more convenient," Alex replied, opening the door for her without bothering to debate. "Get in. Don't keep the doctor waiting." Emma sighed, reluctantly sliding into the passenger seat. The drive was suffocatingly silent. She glanced at Alex. He was focused on the road, hands steady on the wheel, his deep blue eyes fixed ahead. "You don't have to do all this," she said, breaking the quiet. "I told you I don't need it." "I know," Alex answered, his tone even. "But I'm doing it anyway." She didn't know how to respond. He was stubborn, but not in a forceful way that grated on her. There was something about him, his calm, his resolve, that made her want to push him away, yet unable to fully dislike him. At the clinic, Emma lay on the ultrasound table, gripping the hem of her shirt nervously. Alex stood beside her, silent, but she could feel his gaze locked on the screen. When the baby's heartbeat echoed, small, fast, steady, Emma's eyes stung with tears. She turned to Alex, about to say something to cut the tension, but stopped short. He stood there frozen, his eyes red, one hand clenched the chair's edge, as if holding something back. "That's its heart?" he asked, his voice almost a whisper. Emma nodded, caught off guard by his reaction. "Yeah, my first time hearing it too." Alex said nothing more, just stared at the screen where the faint image of a tiny life took shape. Emma hadn't expected a man as cold as him to have such a vulnerable moment. She turned away, pretending to wipe sweat, but really hiding the small smile tugging at her lips. A few days later, Emma was hit hard by morning sickness. She curled up on the couch, clutching her stomach, face pale from the smell of food wafting from a neighbor's place. Her phone rang. "Alex, you okay?" he asked, his voice as steady as ever. "No," Emma groaned. "I feel like puking my guts out." "I'll be there in 10 minutes, he said, hanging up before she could protest. True to his word, Alex arrived with a bag, fresh ginger, honey, and a box of herbal tea. Emma looked at him, exhausted and annoyed. "You really didn't have to come," she said, her voice too weak to convince even herself. "You don't need it, but I'm here anyway," Alex replied, walking straight to the kitchen like it was his own. "Ginger tea helps with nausea. I read it online." Emma opened her mouth to argue, but another wave of nausea hit, leaving her nodding instead. From the couch, she watched Alex in the kitchen, slicing ginger with an awkwardness that was almost comical. "Do you even know how to make tea?" she asked, a teasing lilt in her voice. "Of course," Alex said, but seconds later, a loud clang rang out. The kettle hit the floor, hot water splashing everywhere. Alex stood there, hands dripping, face flushed with embarrassment. "Damn it," he muttered, grabbing a towel to wipe the mess. Emma burst out laughing, forgetting her nausea. "Some talented lawyer you are, Alex, but tea-making." Alex shot her a look, mildly peeved, but not angry. "I'll do it again," he said, resuming his ginger slicing more carefully this time. Eventually, he brought her a steaming, slightly lopsided cup of ginger tea, its aroma soothing. Emma took a sip, the nausea easing. "Thanks," she said, her voice soft but genuine. Alex nodded, sitting across from her, hands still sticky with ginger juice. "No problem," he replied, a flicker of satisfaction in his eyes. Things seemed to settle until one afternoon a few days later. Alex came to pick Emma up for her second ultrasound, but as she stepped out, she caught him texting someone on his phone. He smiled faintly, a rare sight, then quickly pocketed it when he saw her. "Who was that?" Emma asked, her tone casual, but a strange feeling stirred inside her. "My secretary," Alex said, opening the car door for her. She asked about a meeting schedule. Emma nodded, not pressing further, but on the drive, her mind wouldn't stop. Secretary. Why'd he smile like that? She told herself she didn't care. Her tie with Alex was just pregnancy co-parenting. But the unease grew. Did he have someone else? A beautiful, smart secretary better suited to a lawyer like him than her, a clumsy pregnant designer. At the clinic, Emma kept her distance. She gave short answers when he spoke, avoiding his eyes. Alex frowned, noticing the shift, but didn't pry. In the ultrasound room, the heartbeat sounded again, but this time, Emma didn't look at his reaction. She hugged her belly, telling herself, "Don't care, Emma. He's not yours." On the drive back, Alex broke the silence. "You okay? You seem off." "I'm fine," Emma said, colder than intended. "Just tired." Alex nodded, not pushing, though confusion flickered in his eyes. He didn't know why she pulled away, but he wasn't the type to dig into emotions. That night, Emma sat on her couch, hand on her belly, mind a mess. She hated admitting it, but Alex's smile while texting haunted her. "I shouldn't care," she whispered. "He has his life. I have mine." But her heart, for the first time in 3 months, raced for a man she'd sworn to ignore. Alex, in his apartment, stared at the tiny earring on his desk. The secretary's text was just a joke about a case he'd won, but he couldn't figure out Emma's odd reaction. He rubbed his forehead, telling himself, "She's just the mother of my kid, nothing more." But deep down, he knew it wasn't that simple anymore. Emma resolved to keep Alex at arm's length, not letting him burrow deeper into her life. Yet every heartbeat she heard, every clumsy attempt he made to care for her, her heart stirred despite her resistance. Alex drove home, gripping the wheel tighter than usual. He didn't understand her, but one thing he knew. He didn't want to stop, not just for duty, but for something he wasn't ready to name. Chapter 5. Past Wounds and Present Confusions. Emma had been trying hard to keep her distance from Alex after the smiling of the secretary incident. She'd spun into a cheesy rom-com in her head. She replied to his texts with curt yes and no thanks, even hitting the supermarket herself to avoid him showing up with more bizarre grocery hauls. But Alex, like a pre-programmed machine, wouldn't quit. He called to check in, sent texts reminding her to drink water, and always ended with "I'm a lawyer. I know what I'm doing." Emma wanted to scream. "What do you know other than driving me nuts?" One lazy weekend afternoon, Emma decided to shop for maternity clothes, baggy outfits and soft slippers to replace the high heels she once adored. She wandered into a familiar furniture and home goods store where she'd worked part-time in college. As she picked up a pumpkin-shaped throw pillow to inspect, a familiar voice chimed from behind. "Emma, you're not planning to cuddle that pumpkin to sleep, are you?" She turned, nearly dropping the pillow when she saw Ryan, her ex, the guy who cheated on her with the excuse that she was too boring. There he stood, tousled blonde hair, grinning like nothing had ever happened. "Ryan," Emma said, her voice icy, hand instinctively on her belly. "What I buy is none of your business." Ryan smirked, stepping closer, his eyes scanning her rounded figure. "Oh, pregnant, huh? I thought you'd stay single forever with that flair for overreacting. Remember our breakup? You cried like it was a Korean drama." Emma gripped the pumpkin pillow, imagining hurling it at his face. I didn't overreact. You were just a jerk, she said, her voice trembling with anger. Now get out of my way. I'm busy. But right then, a deep voice cut in from behind, accompanied by hurried footsteps. She's the mother of my kid, and that pillow's not for throwing at you, though I'd love to. Emma spun around, shocked to see Alex standing there, holding a paper bag full of carrots. He stepped forward, positioning himself between her and Ryan, his blue eyes fixed on the guy with a mix of seriousness and absurdity. Ryan frowned, clearly confused. Who are you? He snapped, his tone hostile. The guy who just bought carrots instead of ginger by mistake. Alex replied, holding up the bag like evidence, but unqualified enough to tell you to shut up and get lost. Emma burst out laughing, her anger forgotten. Carrots. What are you planning to do with those? She asked, hand over her mouth. Alex flushed, scratching his head. I meant to make you ginger tea, but I misread the list. Don't ask. Ryan stared at them, obviously lost. Fine, you two are a match made in heaven, he said, voice tripping with sarcasm, then turned away, muttering something about drama under his breath. Emma watched Ryan go, then turned to Alex, still clutching his carrots with an awkward expression. Thanks, she said, her voice soft but warm. But carrots are a bit much. Alex shrugged, a faint smile flickering. I'm not great at this stuff, but at least I shut him up. On the drive back, Emma sat in Alex's car, hugging the pumpkin pillow while he stashed the carrots in the back seat like some odd trophy. She hadn't expected him to show up right then, let alone defend her with such a ridiculous excuse. She's the mother of my kid. Those words echoed in her mind, silly yet making her heart beat a little faster. You didn't have to do that, she said, breaking the silence. I could have handled Ryan. I know, Alex replied, eyes on the road. But I didn't like seeing him mock you, and I got a bit flustered after buying the wrong stuff. Emma laughed loudly, feeling at ease with him for the first time. You're the clumsiest lawyer I've ever met, she teased. Why carrots of all things? Alex glanced at her, a hint of embarrassment in his eyes. An ex-girlfriend once laughed at me for not knowing how to cook, he said, his voice lowering. She called me too stiff, then left me for a chef. Since then, I've been wary of getting close to anyone. Emma was taken aback by his openness. She'd always seen him as cold, but now she glimpsed an Alex who was awkward, endearing in his own way. I get it, she said gently. Ryan dumped me for being boring. I cried for a week, then swore I'd never trust anyone again. Alex chuckled softly, the first real laugh she'd heard from him. So we're alike, he said. Two clumsy people now tied together by a baby. Emma laughed too, a warmth creeping into her chest. She still feared opening up, but this moment with Alex and his ridiculous carrots made it impossible to hate him. That evening, Alex stayed at Emma's longer than usual. He insisted on making carrot soup to make up for it, despite her protests. She sat on the couch, watching him fumble in the kitchen, spilling salt on the floor, nearly burning the pan. Are you sure you're a lawyer? She yelled from the living room, laughing so hard her stomach hurt. Lawyer, not chef. Alex shot back, bringing out a bowl of strange orange soup. Try it. It won't kill you. Emma took a sip, wincing at the saltiness but smiled anyway. Thanks, she said sincerely, even if it's awful. Alex sat across from her, a glint of satisfaction in his eyes. If the kid asks about its parents, he said suddenly, his voice low, what do you want me to say? Emma froze, caught off guard by the question. She looked at him, seeing both seriousness and gentleness in his gaze. I don't know, she replied, her voice softening. Maybe your dad once tried making carrot soup and failed miserably. Alex laughed, a rare sound that startled her. Fair enough, he said. But I'd add, your mom laughed so hard she forgot to cry. Emma went quiet, hand on her belly, heart racing. She didn't respond, but the smile lingered on her lips. That night, lying in bed, Emma thought about Ryan, Alex, the carrots, and the salty soup. She felt closer to him yet still afraid. Not of him, but of herself, of liking him too much. Alex drove home, hands on the wheel, still smiling as he recalled Emma's laughter. He wasn't good at this, but for the first time, he wanted to try. For her, and for the baby whose heartbeat he'd heard. Chapter 6. The First Taste of Jealousy. Emma was getting used to Alex's presence in her life, even if she didn't want to admit it. After the carrot fiasco and the salty soup, she stopped pushing him away. Not because she needed him, but because he kept showing up with reasons so absurd she couldn't stay mad. He brought real ginger this time, no mix-ups, brewed tea clumsily but with fewer spills, and even assembled a small shelf in her living room, though he lost 2 screws and resorted to duct tape. Lawyer, not carpenter, he'd said with a shrug, making Emma laugh until her sides ached. But that comfort evaporated one Friday afternoon when Alex invited her to his company's party, a casual partner meetup. He called it, just to unwind. "I don't want to go alone," he said over the phone, his voice low and steady. "Will you come with me? I promise no carrot soup." Emma agreed, partly out of curiosity, partly because she couldn't say no to the rare smile she heard in his tone. She wore an emerald green maternity dress, flowy but flattering, sprayed her favorite perfume, and waited for Alex at her door. When he arrived, he stared at her for a long moment before saying, "You look nice." Emma blushed, mumbled a thanks, and hurried into the car to hide her flustered state. The party was at an upscale restaurant bathed in warm golden light, with soft jazz humming in the background. Emma sat beside Alex, sipping orange juice, trying to blend in among the polished lawyers and business people. Alex introduced her to a few colleagues, his voice calm. "This is Emma, my friend." She forced a smile, wondering what friend meant to him. The woman he accidentally got pregnant, or the one he tried not to spill ginger tea for. Then everything shifted when a woman walked in. She was tall, with long glossy black hair, wearing a fitted red dress that exuded confidence and sharpness. Emma overheard someone whisper, "That's Olivia, a lawyer from the rival firm. She used to date Alex." Emma glanced at Alex, catching the brief pause before he stood to greet Olivia. "Long time no see," he said, polite but stiff. Olivia flashed a dazzling smile, resting a hand on his shoulder with easy familiarity. "Alex, still as cold as ever, huh? I thought you'd call me after last month's case." Emma turned away, pretending to focus on her orange juice, but her ears caught every word. Olivia reminisced about the old days in a honey tone, while Alex replied curtly, "Yeah, it's been a while." They stood a few steps from her, chatting long enough for Emma to spin a whole movie in her head. Olivia, gorgeous, brilliant, perfect ex-girlfriend, back to rekindle things with Alex, while she was just a clumsy pregnant woman in the way. "I don't care," Emma told herself, taking a big gulp of juice and nearly choking. "He can talk to whoever he wants." But for the rest of the afternoon, she sulked, forcing smiles at Alex's colleagues' small talk and even refusing the chocolate cake he brought her. "I'm full," she lied, though her stomach growled in protest. Alex frowned, sensing the change, but didn't press. He just sat quietly beside her, occasionally glancing over as if wanting to say something. Emma told herself she wasn't jealous. No way. But the gnawing discomfort clung to her like a new wave of morning sickness. The party peaked when Olivia took the small stage, delivering a brief speech about a collaboration between their firms. She finished by looking at Alex, beaming. "I hope to work with you more, Alex, like old times." Emma gripped her glass, picturing herself chucking it at Olivia. Not out of jealousy, just mild annoyance. But then Alex stood, taking the stage for his turn, microphone in hand, his voice steady as ever. He thanked the crowd, then unexpectedly turned to Emma. "I'd like to introduce someone," he said, his gaze locking onto her. "This is Emma, the most important person to me right now." The room went quiet for a beat before murmurs rippled through. Emma froze, face flaming, unsure how to react. Olivia's brow furrowed, her smile stiffening. Alex stepped down, walked straight to Emma, and pulled her to her feet amid curious stares. "You don't need to be shy," he whispered. "I'm just telling the truth. Most important." What are you saying?" Emma stammered. But Alex only shrugged, a faint smile flickering. "You're the mother of my kid. Who else would it be?" She didn't know how to respond, caught between embarrassment and warmth. Olivia watched from afar, eventually turning away with a less than thrilled expression. Emma told herself she wasn't jealous, but that earlier unease melted, replaced by a strange flicker of pride. On the drive back, Emma sat in Alex's car, quiet but no longer cold like on the way there. He drove, hands on the wheel, then suddenly pulled over by a small park. "I got something for you," he said, his voice hesitant. Emma raised an eyebrow as he dug into his suit jacket. He pulled out a small box, opened it, revealing a silver star-shaped earring identical to the one she'd left in the hotel that night. "I saw this at a jewelry store last week," he said, handing it to her. "I kept the old one because I didn't want to forget you. Now I want you to have this." Emma took the earring, her heart pounding. "You didn't have to," she said softly, but her fingers clutched the gift like it might vanish. "I know," Alex replied, meeting her eyes. "But I wanted to." She looked at him, seeing his gaze soften, no longer cold but gentle, warm. "Thanks," she whispered, at a loss for more. Alex smiled faintly, then turned away, starting the car as if he hadn't just dropped the sweetest unspoken confession she'd ever heard. That night, Emma lay in bed, holding the new earring, thinking of Olivia, Alex's introduction, the gift. She didn't want to be jealous, but she had been, and now she didn't know what to do with her racing heart. Alex sat in his apartment, staring at the old earring still in his desk drawer. He wasn't good with words of love, but for the first time, he wanted her to understand that she wasn't just the mother of his kid, but someone he couldn't forget. Chapter 7. Meeting the Family. Emma was starting to see Alex as more than just a stubborn lawyer or the guy who clumsily brews ginger tea. After the company party and the earring he gave her, she stopped holding him at arm's length. He kept showing up, bringing real ginger now, assembling shelves without losing screws, even attempting cookies, though half the batch burned. "I don't want my kid growing up thinking their dad only knows how to buy carrots," he'd said with a shrug, making Emma laugh until tears streamed down her face. But that warmth faced a test when Alex unexpectedly invited her to his parents' house one Saturday evening. "They want to meet you," he said over the phone, his voice hesitant. "I can't promise they'll be easy, but I want them to know about us." Emma blinked. "Us? You mean me and the baby?" "Yeah," Alex replied, then added something that made her blush. "And you too." She agreed, though her stomach churned with nerves. She wore a simple maternity dress, put on the earring he'd given her, and waited at her door. When Alex arrived, he looked at her and smiled faintly. "You look like you're heading to a job interview." "That's exactly what it is," Emma quipped, her tone laced with humor. "Meeting your parents sounds more nerve-wracking than a VIP client pitch." Alex chuckled, a rare sound that eased her jitters. But when they pulled up to the Mitchell family home, a grand old-style villa with iron gates and manicured gardens, Emma's heart pounded in her chest. Alex's parents, Mr. and Mrs. Mitchell, greeted them with cool politeness. Mr. Mitchell, a retired lawyer with silver hair and a sharp gaze, sat in an armchair, swirling a glass of whiskey. Mrs. Mitchell, an elegant woman with her hair in a high bun, sized Emma up from head to toe like she was appraising an object. "So this is the girl carrying Alex's child?" Mrs. Mitchell asked, her voice light but loaded with subtext. Emma nodded, forcing a smile. I'm Emma. Nice to meet you both. The air turned tense fast as Alex explained about the baby and his intent to be involved. Mr. Mitchell cut in. Involved, Alex. You're a lawyer, not a nanny. Who is she to drag you into this mess? Emma clenched her fists, humiliation rising. I didn't mean to drag him into anything, she said, her voice trembling. It was an accident, but I'll raise the baby myself if I have to. Mrs. Mitchell raised an eyebrow, her expression dripping with disapproval. A freelance designer. No family background. No stability. You're not a match for our son. Alex needs someone like Olivia. Smart, accomplished, suited to this family. Emma froze, Olivia's name hitting like a punch. Alex shot to his feet, his voice firm. Mom, that's enough. I choose her, not you. Emma's the mother of my child, and I respect her. Mr. Mitchell smirked. Respect. You're ruining your future over a mistake, Alex. Emma couldn't take it anymore. She stood, hand on her belly, her voice thick. I don't need anyone choosing me out of duty. Thanks for dinner, but I'll excuse myself. She turned and hurried out, leaving Alex and his parents in stunned silence. On her way to the car, Emma heard Alex call after her, but she didn't stop. She walked down the dark street, tears streaming. She knew she didn't fit with his family. A clumsy designer pregnant by accident, compared to perfect Olivia. But what hurt more was thinking Alex was only with her out of obligation, not desire. She sank onto a park bench nearby, burying her face in her hands and sobbing. Then she heard rapid footsteps and a familiar voice broke through. Emma, why'd you run off? She looked up to see Alex standing there, panting like he'd sprinted after her. You didn't need to chase me, she said, her voice choked. I heard enough. I don't want to be your obligation. Alex frowned, confusion crossing his face. You misunderstood. I'm not with you because of obligation. Emma gave a bitter laugh, tears still falling. Really? Then why? Alex sat beside her, taking her hand despite her attempt to pull away. My parents have been pushing Olivia on me for ages, but I don't want her. I'm with you because I choose you, not them. Emma froze, staring at him, tears halting. Really? She asked, her voice small, barely believing. Alex nodded, squeezing her hand tighter. I'm not good at this stuff, he said, a touch awkward, but I don't want to lose you again. You leaving me in that hotel the first time was bad enough. Emma laughed through her tears, recalling the night she slipped away in the dark. You're still mad about that? She teased, her voice lighter. Yeah, Alex said, a faint smile breaking through. But I'm not letting you go now. She looked at him, seeing his eyes soften, no longer cold but gentle, sincere. She didn't know what to say, just leaned her head on his shoulder, feeling the familiar warmth of his chest, like that first night. But this time, she didn't run. On the drive back, Alex kept one hand on the wheel, occasionally brushing hers as if to confirm she was still there. My parents will have to get used to this, he said softly. They don't control my life. Emma nodded, hand on her belly. Thanks, she whispered, for not giving up on me. Alex smiled faintly. I'm a lawyer. Giving up isn't my strength. Besides, who'd brew your ginger tea if I left? Emma laughed loudly, the weight lifting. She wasn't afraid anymore, not of his family, but because she knew he'd stand by her, clumsy or stiff as he might be. That night, Emma lay in bed, hand on her stomach, thinking of Alex's parents, the misunderstanding, his words. She no longer doubted him, and for the first time, she wanted to believe they could be a real family. Alex sat in his car outside her place, looking up at her lit window. He wasn't good at love, but for the first time, he knew he didn't want to lose her, not out of duty, but because she was the one he'd chosen, ever since the night she left that earring on his bed. Chapter 8. The Storm and the Delivery. Emma had never imagined her life taking this turn, From a panicked girl fleeing a hotel after a drunken night to a mother to be with Alex by her side, a man she once called an accident, but now couldn't bear to lose. After that night in the park when he held her hand in the cold wind and said, "I don't want to lose you again," Emma stopped fighting her heart. He was still as clumsy as ever, spilling ginger tea, dropping screws while assembling shelves, burning cookies, but every time he shrugged and said, "I'm a lawyer, not a chef," her heart warmed. Her pregnancy reached the 8th month, and Emma felt every tiny kick inside her, a reminder she was no longer alone. Alex had changed too. He read parenting books, brought over quirky gadgets like a white noise machine he swore would help her sleep, only to break the cord and sheepishly ask her to fix it. "My kid deserves a dad who can do something," he'd said, and Emma laughed, amazed at how serious he'd become. But that fragile peace shattered one Friday night as dark clouds swallowed the city sky. Rain began to fall, heavy drops pounding the windows, the wind howling through the cracks like a somber melody. Emma was on the couch, hand on her belly, watching a comedy when a sharp pain stabbed through her. She took a deep breath, thinking it was just a false contraction, but then a second wave hit, fierce and cutting, making her groan and drop the remote to the floor. "It's not time yet," she whispered, glancing at the clock, 2 weeks shy of her due date. But the pain didn't wait, crashing in faster, fiercer, as if tearing her apart. Panicked, her trembling hands grabbed her phone, dialing Alex, praying he'd pick up in the dead of night. "Hello, Emma." Alex's voice came through, groggy but snapping alert at her ragged breathing. "What's wrong?" I think I'm going into labor," Emma said, her words broken, clutching the phone so hard her knuckles whitened. "What?" Alex bolted upright. She heard something crash, probably his bedside lamp, followed by a quiet, "Damn it." He shouted into the phone, "Are you okay?" "I'm coming. Don't hang up." Emma managed a weak laugh through the pain. "Don't drive too fast. It's pouring." She heard the rain hammering through the speaker as Alex rushed outside, the car door slamming, the engine roaring to life. "I'm on my way," he said, his voice urgent but steadying. "Keep talking to me. Don't be scared." "You say that like it's easy," Emma replied, forcing humor though her face paled. "I'm dying over here." "I know," Alex said, and she heard a horn blare amid the rain pelting his windshield. "I'm almost there. Breathe deep. You've got this." The pains came relentlessly, making it impossible to sit still. Emma dragged herself to the door, hand on her belly, planning to call an ambulance when headlights pierced the thick rain. Alex leaped from the car, his suit soaked, hair plastered to his forehead, rushing to catch her as she nearly collapsed. "Why didn't you wait inside?" he yelled over the wind, arm steadying her. "Because you're slow as a turtle," Emma shot back, voice choked with pain, clinging to him as another contraction hit. Alex didn't argue, just helped her into the car and sped to the hospital. Rain battered the glass, visibility near zero, but he held her hand the whole way, whispering, "I'm here, Emma. Don't be afraid." At the hospital, Alex carried her into the ER, his soaked clothes dripping on the floor. Nurses rushed Emma to delivery, and Alex followed, shouting at them, "I'm the father. Don't kick me out." In the delivery room, Emma lay on the table, gripping Alex's hand, sweat streaming down her forehead. The pain was unbearable, making her scream, but Alex's voice cut through, low and firm. "I'm here, Emma. You're stronger than anyone I've ever met." She turned to him, vision blurred with pain and tears. Tell me something," she whispered, voice faint, "to take my mind off this." Alex froze, then nodded, still clutching her hand. "The first night we met," he began, voice rough, eyes tinged with nostalgia. "You were wasted, giggling as I tried to get your address. I took you to the hotel because I couldn't leave you on the street, and the next morning, you were asleep on my chest, peaceful, like nothing had happened. I thought you were a huge mess, a stupid mistake of mine, but you're the best mistake I've ever made, Emma." Emma smiled faintly through tears, the pain easing slightly with his voice. "I ditched you," she said, voice breaking. "You weren't mad." "I was," Alex replied, eyes red, hand trembling as it held hers. "You slipped out in the dark, leaving me with that earring and an emptiness I couldn't explain. I looked for you in every perfume, every long strand of hair I saw. And now I'm here, in this storm, because I can't imagine my life without you." Warmth seeped through her amid the brutal pain. Nurses urged her to push, and Emma braced herself, squeezing Alex's hand so hard he winced, but didn't let go. He leaned close, whispering in her ear, "Let me be your husband, not just the father. I want to wake up beside you every day, hear you laugh when I spill ginger tea, grow old with you. I love you, Emma." Emma froze, tears spilling, not from pain, but from uncontainable joy. She looked into his deep blue eyes, seeing the love and sincerity he'd kept hidden, and nodded, voice choked. "Yes, yes, Alex. I love you too." Alex grinned, the brightest smile she'd ever seen. Tears streaking his face, he kissed her forehead, whispering, "Thank you." Then, with one final push fueled by every ounce of strength she had left, a baby's cry pierced the room, shattering the tension. Emma collapsed back, panting, mind hazy, but her eyes locked on the tiny bundle the nurse lifted. "A girl," the nurse said, smiling, placing the baby in Emma's arms. She gazed at her daughter, seeing Alex's blue eyes sparkling like the sky after a storm, and tears mixed with her joyful smile. "Lily," she whispered, the name they'd chosen long ago. Alex stood frozen, eyes glued to the baby. The nurse grinned. "Want to hold her?" He nodded, but his hand shook so much he nearly dropped the clamp she handed him to cut the cord. When the nurse placed Lily in his arms, Alex stopped breathing, as if the world had paused. He looked down at her tiny face, her blue eyes, his eyes, staring back. His trembling hand brushed her soft cheek, so delicate he feared he'd hurt her. A sacred, warm, overwhelming feeling surged in his chest, as if his once dry heart had finally learned to beat. Tears rolled down his face, dripping onto her blanket, and he whispered, voice breaking, "You're my daughter, my Lily." Emma watched him, his red eyes shimmering with joy and unspoken love. She smiled, voice weak but warm. "You're better at holding her than brewing tea." Alex laughed through tears, kissing Lily's forehead, then turning to kiss Emma. "Thank you," he said, voice low, "for giving me this whole world." Emma lay in the hospital bed, cradling Lily, eyes never leaving Alex. He sat beside her, still damp from the rain, but his gaze glowed brighter than any storm outside. They said nothing more, just looked at each other and their daughter, knowing from this moment they were a family, bound forever by the most beautiful mistake of their lives. Chapter 9. Epilogue. 3 months after Lily was born in that storm, Emma and Alex's lives settled into a new rhythm, chaotic, clumsy, but brimming with joy. From a cold lawyer who only knew pens and arguments, Alex had morphed into a bumbling dad whose antics kept Emma in stitches. Their small house, once Emma's solitary space filled with interior design sketches, was now alive with cries, laughter, and toys scattered across the floor. One early morning, Emma sat on the couch, cradling a yawning Lily, whose deep blue eyes, Alex's eyes, blinked up at her. Alex stood by the changing table, holding a diaper, sweat beading on his forehead, as if facing a tough courtroom battle. "Why won't this stick?" he muttered as the diaper fell off for the 3rd time, leaving Lily wriggling, bare-bottomed. Emma burst out laughing, clutching her stomach so hard she nearly dropped Lily. "You're a lawyer, Alex. Can't you read the instructions on the pack?" "Law school didn't teach diaper changing," Alex grumbled, though not truly annoyed. He bent down, trying again, but this time He taked it upside down, prompting Lily to wail. "Damn it," he muttered, scratching his head, shooting Emma a pleading look. "Give it here," Emma said, setting Lily on the couch and fixing the diaper in 10 seconds flat. She looked up, grinning. "See, easy as pie." Alex shrugged, scooping Lily up and kissing her cheek with a prideful air despite the slightly crooked diaper. "At least I made her laugh," he said, pointing at Lily giggling in his arms. Emma shook her head, laughing until her sides hurt. "Yeah, because she knows how funny her dad is." They tended to Lily together day by day, from sleepless nights rocking her to sleep with Alex singing "Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star" in a stiff courtroom monotone that had Emma stifling laughter, to afternoons when he pushed the stroller in the park so clumsily he nearly tipped over her milk bottle. Through each moment, Emma watched their little home take shape, not perfect, but exactly where she belonged. 6 months later, they decided on a small outdoor wedding in the garden behind Alex's house, where he planted a tiny apple tree, vowing to care for it like our kid. Only a handful of close friends attended. His parents weren't there. They still hadn't fully accepted Emma, but Alex didn't care. "They don't get to run my life," he told her, and she knew he meant it. The ceremony took place on an autumn afternoon, soft golden sunlight filtering through the leaves, a gentle breeze lifting Emma's hair. She wore a simple white dress, nothing fancy, holding Lily as she walked toward Alex. He stood there in a gray suit, ring in hand, his blue eyes locked on her, unblinking, just like the night he raced through a storm to reach her. As he slipped the ring onto her finger, his hand trembled slightly, but his voice was low and steady. "From my chest to my heart, you've always had a place. I'm not good with sweet words, but I promise to spend my life brewing ginger tea for you, no matter how many times I spill it." Emma laughed, tears streaming down her cheeks. "You're better than you think," she replied, voice choked, "and I'll stay with you, no matter how many kitchens you burn down." She stood on tiptoe, kissing him amid their friends' hearty applause, while Lily giggled in her arms as if joining the celebration. That evening, with Lily asleep in her crib, Emma and Alex sat on the porch, hand in hand, gazing at the moonlit sky. The air was still, broken only by rustling leaves and their steady breathing. Emma leaned her head on his shoulder, feeling the familiar warmth of his chest, the warmth she'd woken up to in that hotel, now her home. "Alex," she whispered, voice soft but full of feeling, "if there's a next life, I'd still want to wake up beside you, on your chest, like that first day." Alex turned to her, his gaze gentler than ever. He leaned down, kissing her forehead softly, whispering, "And I'd still keep your earring so I'd never forget you, no matter how many times you ditch me." Emma smiled, pulling him into a tight hug, and in that moment, she knew that no matter how many storms life threw their way, they'd always find each other, just like that fateful night that bound them forever. Emma and Alex sat there, fingers intertwined, staring at the peaceful night sky. Lily slept soundly in her crib, their little home filled with love and laughter. From a silly mistake in a hotel, they'd built a family, not flawless, but everything they needed. And in their hearts, they both knew this wasn't just an ending, but the start of peaceful days ahead. Thank you for following this heartfelt story of Soul and Real Stories channel. Share your thoughts about the story in the comments below if you believe that true love can withstand all trials and sometimes begins in the simplest of ways. Don't forget to hit the like button and share this story with your friends to never miss out on touching and meaningful stories. Subscribe to our channel and help us spread messages of love and warmth to everyone. Let's cherish the beautiful moments of life and love together.